Hello and welcome to another episode of the RevRx podcast. My name is Chad Potts and I'm your host. In today's episode, I sit down with Chad Wooters and discuss something that maybe you've had some experience with or you've been seeing all over the news and you want to know what it's about, and that's artificial intelligence, or AI. We're going to talk about the ins and outs of AI, the history of AI, where it came from. You're going to be surprised about how old AI actually is. And we're going to talk about the ramifications of maybe where this is going to look in 5, 10, 20 years. We're going to also talk about how you can use AI in your life every single day and how it can help you. And I hope that you find it helpful in navigating the artificial intelligence world that we live in. And I think you're going to learn a thing or two about AI that maybe you didn't know before. So without further ado, I introduce to you my friend, Chad Wooters. Chad, thank you so much for joining us today on the RevRx podcast, brother. What a privilege it is to have you here on the show.
Yeah, and same thing, Chad. It's great to have a fellow Chad, two of
That's
us
right.
on one call. Good names, all that jazz.
Yeah, this is the Chad's episode, I suppose. But I followed your work for a while, man. You're doing a lot of incredible work in a lot of different areas. And before we jump into our focus today, which I'd love to talk about artificial intelligence, AI, yeah, I think that's a really fascinating topic, and there's a lot of ways we could go with that. But before then, I'd love for my listeners just to get to know you a little better. So can you tell us a little bit about just how you landed where you are today?
Yeah, it's kind of one of those stories that is a little crazy and roundabout. Frankly, had you said I'd be where I am, I would have never guessed in a million. I wouldn't put money on this outcome for sure.
Yeah, same here.
I mean, it kind of goes back to where, I wasn't a Christian. I was a teenager. I was a jerk and a not nice person, I like to say. And I said, all right, God, you got 6 months to prove it. And became Christian through the study of apologetics, proving the faith.
Yeah.
And I became a Christian. It was really not the outcome I was expecting. And so that kind of changed everything around 16, 17 years old. Starting college, I made it a year before I dropped out because I was making more money in my business than the state was paying me to go to school, which looking back was a very weird perspective to have. And then one business was going good. The second business did not go well at all. I followed some really bad advice, and frankly, it got to a point where I was struggling to pay the bills and the employees and the team and all that kind of stuff, and my own bills. And so there was about 3 or 4 months where I couldn't afford to eat. I actually lost 9 pounds, which, if you are looking for a weight loss strategy, not eating is on the top of the list.
It is. It works every time.
It does, yeah. That was a really humbling part. The first business was structured like a nonprofit, so I only took some money at the end of the year, or if I actually worked within the company, but I had that run by someone else, so I couldn't dip into those funds. It'd be inappropriate. The second company, I opened the office, 2 hours from my house. I couldn't afford to drive home. It was a whole mess. And it was people being kind to me actually during that time, where Bernie would give me the cucumbers from his salad. And he didn't know it, but besides the $1 bean and cheese burrito, was all the nutrition I had that day. Or Lorena would invite me over to her house for dinner because she saw me working late. And her family was just very generous. So I got to eat full meals those days. And those folks really kind of saved my life and pulled me out and really gave me an ambition to be kind to other folks. And fast forward, I got scouted by a dental practice and then ended up in dental sleep medicine, and then through business consulting, ironically. And that's kind of where I am now as a business consultant, helping out businesses, either small businesses, medium businesses, really level up with marketing, AI, automation, things like that. And I did get my degrees, went back, got a bachelor's and master's and all that kind of stuff. A lot of fun. It was purely, we were at a point, my wife and I, where we had some time. We didn't have kids yet. And so, like, you know what, now's the time to do it. So we did. And so, yeah, and that's kind of where I ended up, how I got here. In that journey, AI has become very popular in the last couple of years. And I had a coach of mine actually say, hey, you really need to look into this. And this is a couple of years ago. And when I learn something new, I've got this problem with I'm addicted to learning. I'm not actually that smart. I love learning.
Yeah, that's
And
great.
so I really dove into AI headfirst and started building custom AI agents to, automate work. I started building agents and AI tools for my team so that I could delegate work that would get done more effectively to a higher tier, things of that nature. And it just opened up this whole new world. And so that's what I do now, is really help others implement AI, which I think is part of the reason we're on the call today.
Yeah, absolutely. You said so much that I loved about your story. I like the non-traditional route. Um, I think society kind of lays out, you need to do this and then this and then this and then this. But that's not the way it goes a lot of times. And every journey is different. And I love how you've landed on your feet, and you're in this point now to where you're not afraid to say, hey, I failed sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, really the only failure is not trying. And so you were pushing through, you were creating businesses, you were an entrepreneur, you had success in one, you didn't have success in the other one, and hey, that's life, right? But I can almost guarantee you the lessons you learned through those are what's sustaining you today, right?
100%. I know we're trying to get to AI, but we've talked some just about like motivational drivers, and I'll do a very succinct, like 5-second TED talk on this. But, Simon Sinek writes in a book called Start With Why, where we as people make decisions emotionally first. So we need to understand what drives those emotions and what drives our decisions. So I'm a big proponent of finding a personal why. I also believe for communicating and building relationships with others, you should also have that why for that explicit purpose. And so through those experiences, there's a lot of things I learned. I mean, so many things that I've learned in the hard way, unfortunately. But it really came down to 3 things for me, from that business failing, Bernie and Lorena and their example to me. I mean, I want to be kind, because you don't know if the other guy they're being kind to or guy you're being kind to is someone like me who's struggling to pay their bills. Right. I mentioned faith first actually earlier. That's critical to me. I mean, I wouldn't be anywhere. I wouldn't have anything I have today. I'd probably be doing something entirely different had I not listened to the calling of God and leaned into him during those times. I mean, going 9 or 10 weeks straight with not eating very much is something, a faith building activity. I'll tell you that too. And then just present, through all these things, the relationships that I've had, the ones that I've maintained and I've grown, have really come from being present with other folks, putting down the cell phone, not looking at the TV. It's sad today. I believe that most of the world's problems today can be attributed to the fact that people are more concerned about what's going on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn than what's happening across the coffee table.
Absolutely.
From them. And that's, if we can modify that, if we can adjust that, then we have an opportunity to be present. And I think that's going to be how we influence real change in the world today. It's going to be how we show God's grace and love to the world today. And so there's a whole curriculum around it. I teach it pretty frequently, but for me, if you want to how I got here and me in 3 words, it's faith, kind, and present, because that's really the impact I want to have and the influence I want to leave.
I love that. And, it's a natural segue into, okay, we're going to be talking about AI. We're going to be talking about artificial intelligence. But first, let's understand the human part of this too.
Right.
You're a human, you're on a human journey. And I love to hear, how people got to where they are today. And there's so much to unpack there. Maybe we can do an episode 2 later. I'm really interested to learn about, you're just a wealth of knowledge about several things, but I'm interested to hear about the apologetics side of things and how that influenced you. And so before we get into AI, understanding that AI is not a replacement for humans.
Yeah.
Because we all are unique. We all have these journeys that have taken us various places, given us all these experiences, and only we can provide that. And so, I think that's perfect. It's a perfect introduction to what we're going to be talking about when it comes to AI. So, digging in, artificial intelligence. A lot of people, I think we're split. I think that there's a lot of people that are tapping into it, that are using it, that are fascinated by it, that maybe see its potential. And I think there's a lot of people that are scared of it. So can you just talk to us a little bit, just broad picture overview of maybe a little bit of the history of AI, kind of how we got to where we are today, and some functional uses that maybe the everyday person might find helpful through AI. And here's the thing: I think a lot of times we are using AI and don't realize it. Odds are you've probably used it at some point, and you may not have called it that. So, I'd love to just open the floor for you to kind of give us a primer on all things artificial intelligence.
I mean, AI has been around a long time. In fact, they first started talking about AI about 500 BC, 500 years before Christ. And so when we look at that, we see that the conversation's been happening for a long time. It wasn't until the 1950s that we started really experimenting with AI, building out models, things like playing chess matches with AI, stuff like that. If you remember the 1983 War Games movie, that kind of thing. AI is not a new concept. Terminator, all the different pieces. So if you've ever played with a computer into a chess match, you've played with AI. That's a system that's artificially intelligent, that's learned how to play the game, and based on the settings in the game for you, is going to be difficult to beat based on preset conditions. It wasn't until the 2000s that big companies started using AI, like I believe it was 2006 that Google, Meta, Facebook at the time, these companies started using our data inside of AI to really provide the algorithm, as a lot of people reference it today. And it's been being used for the last 18 years by those companies in mass, all over the world. We've been influenced by AI for a lot longer than we've known that AI is a thing.
Yeah, sure.
It wasn't really until 2011 that we started seeing the general AI starting to be built, and only recently that we started seeing that the public had access to a lot of these AI models. It was probably around that 2011 time. I remember playing around with our first chatbot. We were just hanging around in school, just trying to break the thing, asking it silly questions, things like that. But we've been using AI for a long time, and so if you're scared of AI, I want to tell you a couple things. One, the AI that we're at right now is called general AI. It is several steps beyond what would be called a super AI. We don't even have the technology today to go to super AI, and super AI would be to take over the world, kind of Terminator-esque technology. Okay, we have AI that's built for a specific purpose. It's actually called simple AI, believe it or not, and AI is both really cool because you can do amazing things with it. And I'll go through some things here in a moment, but it's also not as far as we think. In fact, even though it can do things, if you don't know how to ask it well to do those things, it won't do them very well at all. And so it is both far more advanced and far less able than one might imagine. And so if you're on the fence about AI, I do encourage you to do it, because while I don't believe AI will really, I believe it might replace some jobs, but I don't think it'll really replace the majority of jobs. It is something that I believe is going to become a required skill set, kind of like Microsoft Office.
Right.
You've got to know how to use Excel to get a job most days. Now,
and same with like a smartphone. Some people have been kind of, early on, oh, I don't want that. And now it's almost a necessity of sorts to be able to have all of that at your fingertips. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So with that, I mean, in Excel, and this is a great example. This is, I think, one of the best comparisons for AI and technology. In Excel, you can build a formula, you can run a script, you can run a macro that will take things and do amazing things to that data. The question is, well, does the ability to build an automation? I was running an Excel sheet last night where I was able to enter a keyword, and then it was going to extract all that data into a subsheet of the Excel file. Really cool. I don't know how to do it. I'll be honest with you. AI wrote me the formula. That would have been someone's job, technically speaking. They would have had to review 15, 20, 30,000 data entry columns and then extract all that data into a subsheet. But Excel did it for me. So did that person...
In seconds, probably.
In seconds, yeah, exactly. That's not even AI. I mean, AI wrote the formula, sure, but that's a technology we have today. Did that technically cost someone their job? Probably, sure. But what it has allowed me to do in that moment is now, for me, instead of hiring someone who, paying whatever, $15, I'm in California, so $15, $16 an hour, to do that kind of data entry work, I can give someone $20 an hour and make sure that they're doing work that is the most meaningful, the most impactful. And for that person, they're happy because they're not sitting there going for 14 days through, thousands and thousands of rows of data to see if this word pops up. And that's where we see, I believe AI is going to go. It will replace some very, very basic jobs, but I believe it'll allow most of us to do more meaningful work more of the time. Frankly, I think it'll help us kind of do better work. There's a lot of great tools and benefits to that. We were worried about technologies in manufacturing and machines and robots doing that kind of stuff. And that's true. That does happen. That doesn't, to your point, Chad, is we have to, there's still a human component. There's still a quality control check component. There's still all those pieces. AI today, especially, is not at the point where we can just give it all away and do that. And so that's the big thing. Don't worry about that and go learn it, because it is going to be required. It's going to be beneficial. And that's kind of a history and a use case. I have not talked about anything that you can do with AI, but anything you want me to hit back on there, Chad?
Yeah, I think that's a really helpful way to think about it. Is that, it's a tool, it's a resource, it's probably one that's going to continue to grow, and it's probably one that you need to be able to tap into and be able to learn a skill set around. But it's not going to replace jobs in the fact of big picture. Mm-hmm. We're looking at small, medial jobs, medial tasks that don't require a lot of thinking, that don't require a lot of creativity. And hey, that frees people up to do more of those higher level tasks that, let's just say, a human needs to do. Mm-hmm. So that's a really helpful way to think about it.
Cool. Thank you. But what can you do as a everyday person? I'm going to go through a couple of things that I personally used it for. Last year in August, so 2023 August, maybe July, I asked ChatGPT to write me a diet plan or a smoothie recipe list. And I decided I was going to cut out most solid foods beyond smoothies and one meal a day for about 9 months. Lost 20 pounds, really, really great. Healthy this time. ChatGPT made me the smoothies. It gave me the recipes, estimated caloric counts, gave me a shopping list to go to the store with. It did that. So there's right there a couple of things. You want to try out new recipes. You want to try out shopping lists. I mentioned Excel sheets earlier. If you have to do work with Excel sheets and want to figure out if there's a way to do it better, faster, whatever, AI can help with that. My biggest use case for me is learning new things. Mm-hmm. So I do have a master's. I was actually doing an accelerated master's program, and I was able to use it as a personalized tutor where instead of trying to find time to go to the tutor center and all that kind of stuff, I was able to say, hey, what's this concept? Can you break this down to me? Cool. I'm not that smart. Break it down to simpler terms, that kind of stuff. And it really, really helps. It allowed me to be in focus and continue to work in that moment. We see this everywhere. We see this in email marketing, in learning new skills. We see this in coding. We see this in writing feedback. And so AI can do just about anything you ask it to. In fact, a lot of the folks that have helped implement AI have come back to me and said, even after listening to a podcast like this, and been like, Chad, I think AI might be my new best friend, because I just ask it, I can text to it and all that kind of stuff. And now you can talk to it like on a phone call, and it'll transcribe that. And I mean, there's times where I've had to walk the baby to sleep. We've got a 5-month-old daughter, and I don't have the time to sit there and talk to it, but I got some things bouncing around in my brain. My baby likes my voice, so I can talk to it in my ear and bounce the baby, and everyone's happy, and I get work done. It's awesome. It's almost limitless. And then if you're a high performing professional or a business, I mean, there's so many things, from Google autoresponders so that you get all your Google reviews responded to via AI. We have built, and I mean, I guess this goes against the whole taking your job things. We built a AI receptionist lately. It's not a big business, but it doesn't replace the human component. It just allows the human to, if they're busy, have someone answer the phone, collect the necessary information so they can call them back in a meaningful way. So many applications out.
Yeah. And you're not, you could even set that for 24/7 and allow the human to work, during work hours, and then have that as the after hours. So many neat things you can do. Now, let me ask you a couple questions about that. Now, how does that differ from like a Google search? Because some people may be listening to this and saying, well, I can search for smoothies in Google. Mm-hmm. Help us differentiate between that traditional Google search and something like AI. And then also kind of looking down the road too, where does it pull information from? Because a lot of times what I've found is unless you feed it the right information, sometimes it doesn't always pull out accurate information. So sometimes it's how you ask it, and sometimes it's what information it has to go off on. So if that makes sense, there's a couple different ways of looking at it, but I'm just seeing if you can expand on some of that for us.
Yeah. So when it comes to AI, we have to remember that AI has a general knowledge set, and actually it's kind of similar. It's easiest to understand this when we talk about kind of the human brain. We don't have the ability as humans to recall all information perfectly. And a lot of the way that we think, we've kind of bundled information into little groups and places, right? So we know if I say the word candy cane, you're going to immediately associate Christmas, right? Because that's how our brains work. And AI works a lot like that. It takes information and for like ChatGPT, a lot of information, and it's bundled it into these kind of, they're called vectors, but they're really just things that are related. And so when you're asking it for information, it is possible to create that what's called a hallucination when it's inaccurate. And so that's one of the differences is from an AI standpoint. Google isn't, now they've got some AI stuff they're doing, which is a little bit different. But prior to their AI implementation, they're just searching your phrase against information on the website or in the internet that's available. They're using things like the contents of that. They're using meta descriptions, which are summaries of that, and then also AI that evaluates the relevance of the content of the search queries and the keywords. So you're searching for a keyword. With AI, you're asking a question and you're getting a dialogue back. So one of the tips actually I recommend for a lot of folks is, well, things that are generally well understood, it is okay to ask AI to help out with. For things that you want to get very specific or you need accurate information, then upload good source material. I do this a lot, or I've done this a lot in the medical dental space, where I've got a study or something that I want to break into a couple bullet points. I'm going to upload that PDF to ChatGPT and ask it to break it down, and I'm going to specify only reference the study. Do not pull any other information out, because that's going to reduce those hallucinations. And so when you're looking at that, it's important to know the difference is that with AI, you're getting it's kind of like asking another person a question, and you're getting their best recollection of that or output of that. And it can make mistakes. I mean, even in coding, there are times where if I ask it to write HTML or anything like that, it's wrong. It is the wrong shape or the wrong piece. So you can have that dialogue with it. That's a benefit, in my opinion, compared to Google search, because if you try dialogue with Google search, it's just another search.
Yeah. So it's keyword searches is really what you're distinguishing between. And that's a really, really neat way to think about it. And so I love the way you walk through that and kind of paint that picture for us. What are some of your favorite prompts to ask ChatGPT? One of them you mentioned was about the smoothies and different things. Anything else just kind of fun or maybe even helpful that you have found for some of those that may want to just jump in and start asking some random questions?
Yeah. A couple of my favorite prompts are writing emails. I hate writing emails. So a lot of times I use a tool called Loom, which is just an amazing tool. I'll make a short video and then I'll drop and paste the transcript into ChatGPT and say, hey, can you turn this into an email for me? And it'll do that.
So cool. Yeah.
When it comes to texting, even, this hasn't happened to me. I'm kind of a drama freak person. I do my best, but I can't imagine had I been in high school or later, my younger years when there was more drama about, and had I had a text message I didn't know how to respond to, or maybe I'm reading it and getting upset and angry, I can take that text message or that article or whatever that material is, and then just have ChatGPT break it down for me, and even formulate a response for me that doesn't include my emotions. And that's where it's like, man, we've got that. Or maybe you have an idea that you want to just kind of get some feedback on. It's 11:30 at night. All your friends are asleep, hopefully, because that's you should be asleep by then, unless you have a crazy job. You're gonna say, yeah, I want to think through this idea real quick. Give it an idea. Just have some feedback. And if you want it to be affirming, let it know. If you want it to provide constructive criticism, let it know. But what you ask it to do, it will do that. And so, yeah, I use it all the time for emails. Texting is great.
Yeah, really good tool for those purposes for sure. And a couple ways I wanted to go from here. Number one, can we talk about, so for people that may be already using ChatGPT to some degree, can you give us some tips about some of the prompts?
Yeah.
Obviously, more specific is better, but I found that the way you word some of the questions and the information that you ask of it can really make a difference in what you're receiving back.
100%. In fact, I would say most folks who quit using AI is because they never took the time to learn prompting. So prompting is the process by which we give AI the information and we ask it to do something. That prompt is really, really important. There's different levels of importance, in my opinion, on that, but there's a couple basic ones that we can do. One of them, which can create better results, is called a role. And this is where you assign it a role. And so, for example, if I wanted help with writing emails for email marketing, I would say you're an expert email marketer, right? Giving it that role allows it to tap into its own knowledge base and really find information relevant to that subject, email marketing. It also looks for things that are expert level advice. Now, unfortunately, with the World Wide Web, there's a lot of folks that are self-proclaimed experts that are not. So you still have to be careful with that. But assigning a role will help you get better results specific to the outcome you're looking for. The second thing is we want to make sure that we provide context. When we're talking to AI, it doesn't know anything other than its general knowledge and what we put into the prompt. So it makes sense that we get frustrated sometimes with its results if we don't tell it what we're asking it for and the context in which it'll be used. And so creating that context around the situation would be incredibly helpful for it to give you the output that you want. Number 3 is clear directions. I personally believe that using AI is a really good testament to how well you communicate. If AI does not give you the thing that you want, then that means that you need to try again, try a different way of saying it, because it's literally a robot. So the clear communication question is a really great piece. But if you combine the role with the context of the situation and very clear directions on what it's getting, what you want out of it, rules to not do, then you can absolutely get some really great outputs from there. And actually, those are 2 other pieces. What do you want from it? That's part of the instructions, but I like to talk about it specifically. What is the output you're looking for? Is it a paragraph? Is it a bullet point list? Is it a dialogue? Is it a script? Is it a screenplay? Whatever it is, if you care about that output, make sure you tell it what it looks like. The next one is what not to do. There's a lot of words, in my opinion, that are very AI, transform, revolutionary. Those types of words that indicate you might be using AI sometimes. And so I will often say, hey, don't use these AI words. And here's a list of words not to use. So I call that exclusion criteria. And so if you're just starting, I mean, there's more you could do. Tone of voice is another one that's commonly talked about. But I would say the most important ones are role, context, and clear instructions. You do those 3, then you'll do it. Now, pro tip, if you don't like the output and you want something different, but you don't know how to modify your prompt, ask ChatGPT or Claude or whatever you're using how to make your prompt better. I've done that many, many times. I mean, there's been coaching calls where I've got a client who was trying to use AI to just kind of flesh out some ideas. And I said, you know what, I'm going to give you a prompt. And I whipped one up real quick. I saw the result. It was on track. I said, great, I need to make this better, including these different pieces. Actually, a lot of the pieces I've just told you. Gave me back this horrendously long but beautiful prompt that will allow my client to actually use this AI with a high level of success every single time, which is awesome.
Wow. I love the value that you just added with that little piece. When you think about it, it's really not that different from dealing with other humans, right? Because, if we're dealing with relationships, with human relationships, and asking the right questions is important, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times asking the right questions is going to determine whether or not we like the output.
Right.
And if we're not getting the output we want, hey, maybe it's because we're not asking the right questions. Maybe it's because we're not communicating clearly. And so, hey, some of those skills go both ways, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So another way I wanted to go with that direction is let's think about maybe the dark side of AI a little bit. So, kind of some moral issues per se. So, hey, you've got a college kid that's using AI to write his paper. What are some ways to think about that? What are some ways to kind of wrap our heads around, okay, there is this downside. People can use it to cheat, quote unquote. But that really doesn't negate its value either.
Yeah. Well, I mean, The same can be true for so many other things. I mean, when we look at smartphones and calculators, I mean, smartphones are great, but has cheating increased since calculators went on smartphones? Probably. Does that mean calculators are bad? I don't think so.
Absolutely
You are
not.
correct. Yeah, I'm a big fan of calculators.
Right.
When we look at the ethical component, there are a lot of things. Now, one thing I like people to know is AI is designed, the entire premise of AI, and we didn't go into a lot of how this works, but AI is designed to, it's predictive. So that means it's saying, all right, if I say hello, what is the next word or four letters that comes after hello? And it would say, well, hello, my name is, right? Because that's how we start conversations. It's predicting that. Now, the other side is it's trying to give the user, you or I, whoever's using AI, the thing that we want. So it's predicting the answer that we want. So like social media, like Google, if we start to research a bunch of stuff or ask questions in a slanted way, it's going to feed us information that we want to get, which is a very dangerous thing, in my opinion, to go into, because we really should be challenged. We really should be cautious of consuming information that affirms all of our beliefs all the time, because that can be a very dangerous road.
100%.
So that's the first thing. The second thing on the ethical side is if it feels wrong, it's wrong. I mean, that's I believe that's a thing that God's instilled in us, is that sense of right or wrong. So if it feels like cheating, probably is. That said, the good news is that AI is, while it's better recently, it's not great at math. So if you're using to cheat on math, I wish you the best in luck, because that's not going to end out well for you.
Might want to stick with the calculator.
Might stick with the calculator, absolutely. There are ways to make it better, but the reality is it's more concept-based. For at least ChatGPT, there are math AIs that would obviously be better. But for that, when we look at those issues like writing and ethics, papers, things like that, first thing for the student, there are now AI detectors, and they're getting better all the time. AI is changing all the time, but they're getting better all the time. Like I said to you, I can point out a social media post written by AI in less than 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Because we can tell, the world can tell. So when you're using this stuff, like, please know, like, the world's not going to, you're not going to be doing the cool new way to cheat. You're going to be getting the cool new way to get caught cheating. It's everyone knows now. For the professionals who maybe they don't have that kind of accountability, like a teacher or a grader or a system, you got to kind of ask the ethical question. Now, for me, I will use AI to write blogs or help me build PowerPoints, and it doesn't dictate the speech or the script, but I only use it if I've provided the core source material. So for me, like, I do a little bit job running through verbal things. I can type it, but I can say it a lot faster and my words flow, and I just have a good thing with language. So I will voice type something and then have AI format that for me. And I don't have an ethical problem with that, because that's my idea. And I'm transmitting that into a different format with the help of an assistant, basically. If you're using AI to create, like a pastor, a sermon in a lazy way, I don't think that's right. And again, it goes back to that question, like, is this ethical? Is that really what the Lord has put on your heart? I don't know. Now, could you use it to maybe help you bridge a piece in your sermon? Okay, I don't have a problem with that. Could you use it to find Bible verses? I have. I actually, I was writing a men's devotional. I got stuck, and I was like, you know what? Can you give me some ideas to make this devotional about in this passage of verses? I use it to ideate. I think it's an amazing way.
Right.
Don't let it help you get unstuck. Don't let it do the work for you.
Wow.
But again, let's ask the question, if the AI was a person and you hired someone to write your sermons for you, would you be comfortable with that as a pastor? Probably not. So, well, hopefully not. So we should definitely evaluate that.
Yeah, that's a really good way to think through that. Realizing that potential is there, but it's there with every bit of technology we have.
Yes.
And it's been the case as technology has grown and grown and grown. It's not unique to AI, I guess is what I'm saying. And so yeah, let your conscience be your guide. Let the Lord and the Holy Spirit, if you're a believer, let that be your guide.
Yes.
And, just like with any other piece of technology, if you use it responsibly, it can really help you. But if you use it irresponsibly, number one, you're probably going to be found out. And then number two, that's between you and God. And, you might get away with it here, but, you'll have to answer for it down the road. And it's just like, for example, Google. You can Google a sermon on this and you can steal it off of the website. there's no difference. That's just as wrong. And so, but I like thinking through those sort of things, realizing that the potential for abuse is there, but the potential for abuse is there with anything we have. It's just like us as humans, isn't it? To take something good and abuse it and turn it into something bad.
Well, that's a lot of, frankly, why I get really amped up about AI. It's really not that different than anything else, but that's what people think it's different because it's, autonomous. It's not sentient. If you open up ChatGPT right now and walk away, it'll never initiate a conversation with you. Okay. It requires that you start the conversation. So this is just, as you said, Chad, another tool in our bag.
Mm-hmm.
But there's two things. One, if you're not going to use it ethically, just don't use it, or please, because there's a lot of us who are doing good work with AI and you're giving us a bad rap. The second piece is, if you're not going to use it well, it can cause more damage than good. I mean, I see brands using AI for every piece of their social media marketing, and it's harming their brand.
It is.
Because it looks bad. Look, a hammer is for a nail, and a screwdriver is for a screw. And if you use a hammer on a screw, you're going to be getting some really janky results. I would not recommend that. And that's the same kind of thing we're looking here. Use the right tools for the tool set. AI can be like a screwdriver for that screw if it's used correctly. But if it's used incorrectly, it's just going to make stuff worse. It's going to make a mess.
Yeah, love it. So that's why I wanted to have this conversation. That's why I wanted to put this episode out there, to show people that, here's the reality of AI. You might have heard things. We've heard things about everything. It doesn't make them true. Here's the realities. Here's what it is. It's a tool in your tool belt. Get out there and use it. Get out there, be familiar with it. Don't be scared of it. And here's some things that are useful with that. And so I appreciate you being able to walk through that with us. Now, thinking about the future with AI, you'd mentioned, it's simple AI at this point. Where do you see the future in 5, 10, 20 years with AI? Where do you see this going? What are some of the possibilities with AI in the future?
Yeah, there's a large part of me that wants to believe that AI is going to help create kind of a utopia for work, that we're going to be able to automate, delegate, and really kind of move over these menial tasks into autonomous agents that can do a lot of this work, picking up phones and doing customer support calls. We're already saying, especially for the younger generation, that they don't want to talk to people. They hate picking up the phone. They hate anything more than the text message. They actually want the AI agents to on the websites or those kinds of pieces. So I believe that we're going to see a culture shift where these are widely accepted and they're going to get better because of that. We're going to see a push for higher quality pieces. That said, on the technology side, AI is growing exponentially. They just released about a month ago that ChatGPT released a new model. I want to say it's 4.0i, and it can now comprehend and share information at a postgraduate level, meaning like a master's or doctor's level. That's that's technically simple AI from like a function standpoint. That's a predictive text algorithm that can now understand and share information at that level. We're going to start to see the world of AI assistants coming out where people have a thing on their computer like Apple Intelligence that can take requests, process it on a higher level, and then give back or do things for them. And even potentially, 5-10 years down the way, we could also start to see, I imagine some stuff from like iRobot with Will Smith, if you ever saw that movie.
Yeah.
The cars that drive themselves, more like the Tesla stuff, or taxis and those different pieces. I think it's going to become a part of our world and our technology. And I think in maybe 10 years, I don't think 5, it'll become commonplace for us to have this type of stuff. In terms of what will happen with that, I'm not sure. I can say there has been a lot of big push to make sure that no government is using artificial intelligence in weapons. There's actually been documents and things signed on international level with over 3,000 people saying, don't do this. So we've already got stops in place for that.
Safeguards.
Safeguards, or at least they're attempting to put safeguards in place for that. But I believe AI is here to stay. I believe it's the next Microsoft Office, the next Google. We talk about Googling as a verb. AI is on its track to do that same thing. The difference is, for everyone listening, are you going to learn AI now when it's newer and get to be a part of that development, or are you going to learn it down the way? Where we see a lot of the older generation right now, like, oh, how do I find this on my phone? That's your choice right now, and you get to choose what part of that you're going to be in and learn. I like to get ahead if I can.
Yeah, love it. Well, man, this has been so helpful. I think the sky's the limit with this sort of stuff. I love that we realize the benefits and we realize the potential harms. And we as humans, we're doing human things. We're trying to put stopgaps in place to make sure that we're using this for good and not for harm. So this was so valuable. I would love for you to be able to tell us a little bit about where to find you if people are interested in some of your services. Tell us a little bit about that, and hey, if they just want to reach out, a little more info about AI, how can they do that with you, Chad?
Yeah, if you want to find me personally, I recommend LinkedIn. I'm really good at LinkedIn. I don't do a lot of other social media well, so check me out there. Chad Wooters, MBA. If you want to learn more about my company or you want help with AI, whether it be for yourself or your personal company, go and check out my website, kairostalks.com. It's KAIROS talks.com. Kairos is biblically used to describe God's timing. It means an opportune time in which to accomplish a crucial action. And I do a lot of cool stuff on there, helping folks with marketing, automation, or AI. And even some different things like trying out a chatbot build for free. There's some stuff on there. And then actually, in a couple weeks, we're going to be launching an AI mastermind for people who just want to learn AI and just learn how to use it practically every day. So if you are interested in that, I'll give a link to Chad and we'll get you guys in there. But if you have questions, please just hit me up. I'm more interested in equipping folks to use tools that are out there today than making money. And that's what it's about, serving the people, serving the community.
I'll drop links in all the show notes as well for all of this. But Chad, what a pleasure. This has been a fantastic episode. Very, very helpful. Lots of value here. And just appreciate you. Appreciate what you stand for. Appreciate who you are and what you're doing in the world, man.
Thanks, Chad. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the RevRx podcast. We hope you enjoyed what you heard today, and if so, we'd love it if you would hit that subscribe button so that you'll never miss a new episode from us. Also, feel free to leave us reviews and comments, as we'd love to hear from you. Be blessed and be the very best you.